Okay.
My name is Dana Sarah Nathan. I'm the marketing rep for Old Republic Title out here in Sugar Land. For those of you who do not know me, I really appreciate you guys coming out this morning, joining this class. I'm personally very excited to be in presence of the infamous Dave, your mortgage guy. He is a wealth of information. It's really an honor to have Alyssa join us as well because she brings another perspective to this. Okay. So they're going to be videoing, so I'm going to let them start. I definitely don't want to be on that.
Yep, we're video recording it so you guys can watch it later. I'm Dave Krichmar with Legend Lending. Truth of the matter is you probably know me as Dave, your mortgage guy. All right, and this is Alyssa Gauna with Transactions Made Easier. She's a third-party transaction coordinator. All right?
Hello.
The class, 5 tips to close more deals with less stress.
Like way less stress.
Let me explain what caused me to write this class, right? So, first was I was sitting at lunch with a realtor, and literally, as we've all said, man, every deal has problems. Every deal has problems, right? And I was like, man, it can't be like that. It can't be like that, right? Because just we're going to every one of them stressed out. Something's going to go wrong. The inspection's going to suck. Blah, 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 right? The client's difficult, seller's difficult, whatever. I was like, there's no way. And then I looked at my own business and what I've done in the last 2 years, and I've very streamlined my process. So I was like, and I got with Alyssa and I was like, hey, we've got to write a class where it really kind of helps map out, do the same things every single transaction, and it reduces the stress. Because it reduces, oh my God, I forgot to do that. Oh my God, how no one ordered the HOA, right? HOA cert, right? All of these things that cause problems. So the goal going into it isn't to map it out for you. It's for you to think about your own business and then say, okay, every transaction I'm going to do number 1. Every transaction I'm going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then slowly what you'll notice, and I've seen in my own business, is every deal goes the same, right? Rhonda, I'm going to call you out if it's okay. You've closed enough with me to know that it's weird how every transaction is the same. The updates are the same, the appraisal's back the same, you know, all of this. And that's my way of showing that I use my own systems so it goes smooth every time. All right? Are you guys excited? I want to do one weird activity first, and then we'll start. I want everybody to close their eyes. Right? Close your eyes and imagine that month that you did, and I'm just making up numbers, that you did 5 transactions. You had 5 closings. Okay? Or whatever your number was, and you were stressed. I mean, you thought you were going to pull your hair out. You thought there was no way you could ever close more than 5. That's way too much work. I'm cool with 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever your number was. No way I can do more. All right? Take a breath in. Remember that feeling. Okay? Breathe out. Now, let's think about doubling that number, whatever your number was. Let's say it was 6, now it's 12. Right? Take a breath in. You've had 12 closings and no stress. All right? And breathe out. All right. The reason why I had you do that is because I want you to imagine the ability to close twice as much with less stress. I went through it in my own business. I did 18 closings last month. Yeah, two years ago, I was maxed out at 5. I have no assistant, right? I have my processor, me. Service was immaculate, no issues, everything closed. I could not have done that if I didn't do some of these things in my own business, right? Because it has to be the same every single time, right? So that's what I want you to walk away with is some tips that you go, oh man, that's great, I'm going to do that every single time. All right? Are you guys excited?
Yeah.
So real quick, we're going to do a introduction so you know a little bit more about Alyssa.
So my name is Alyssa. I'm a licensed transaction coordinator for Transactions Made Easy. It's a virtual assistant. I'm actually located in San Antonio, so I just drove up here this morning. So thank you for having me. I have a 3-year-old son named Alexander. I used to live in Alaska for 5 years, so it's a big change to be in Texas now, but I love it. I am licensed. I've been in and around the real estate business for over 13 years. I have a lot of personal experience with it. My mom is actually an agent with Keller Williams. My sister is also a licensed transaction coordinator, and my grandfather was a realtor in Arizona. So I've gotten to see what it's like for an agent firsthand, all the stress that they have to deal with. So that's why I'm here to kind of help make that easier for you.
And I want to tell a story on why I was so impressed with Alyssa when we worked on a file together, and I didn't know her at the time. So, and as we go over it, you can tell there's systems in place, right, that Alyssa does. So Alyssa, rightfully so, as any good transaction coordinator, any good assistant, any good realtor, will follow up with the lender. Hey, when is the appraisal going to be back? Is the appraisal back? Hey, it should be back on Thursday, right? Because I know as any good lender when my appraisal is coming back. Thursday morning, 8 a.m. Hey, is the appraisal back? Is the appraisal back? Like, I was like, oh my God. And so,
Thursday.
Yeah. But so we probably have closed 4 or 5 recently where I've been very lucky to work with her on that end, and every single one of them is the same. Every single one. So then I started to realize there's systems in place. Like, there's systems to allow her to be able to do that. So one thing I was going to ask, tell them how many you close on average each month.
On average, I close about 30 transactions a month.
Which is, and you probably could close, how many do you think?
100. The owner of Transactions Made Easy averages about 100 a month, so yeah. Wow.
And that's crazy, and that goes to systems.
Definitely.
Right? There's no way that you can keep up.
If you don't have systems in place, you're just all over the place.
And I brought her in because she's an expert, but I want you guys, right, to really walk away with putting in your own system or realizing you need a transaction coordinator as your next step, something to simplify that. All right, a little bit about me. I'm Dave, your mortgage guy, 18 years in the biz, like really good at mortgages and stuff, in case anybody was wondering. Knows what can go wrong in the process and focus on eliminating it. That's my business plan. I want the least amount of stress, the most amount of closings, which is the most amount of money. So think again, with all this stress, there's a capacity to what you can close, period, right? If your capacity is 5, with it being a train wreck, if it goes really smooth, it should be 10. And I had to learn that lesson myself, okay? The realtors that work with me know that they will be updated so much, some don't even ask for updates at all, like never. Holly and I have worked together. The ones I work with, you should not have to ask me for an update. You can ask anytime you want for an update, but you shouldn't feel, hey, I haven't heard anything. Like, that's ridiculous, that's bad service. Okay, the why. The life of a realtor is super stressful. You're on the road, you have a lot going on. She explained it already. I mean, it's already ridiculously stressful to do what you guys do, right? So it's not healthy. Not every transaction needs to be hard. I went over that. That mentality has got to go. If you want to close 10 in a month, it's got to go. They all have to go smooth. And then when one goes really bad, just deal with that one. But don't have the mentality that it's going to be difficult all the way to the end every time. You only have so much capacity, so the less BS you have to deal with, the more deals you can close, which is more money. So Alyssa and I wanted to help you out. That's why we wrote it. And then at the end of the day, it's all about structure and efficiency. You should know every single contract you get, you do the same steps. So my goal is that you walk away with this class going, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, and it makes it easier. Tip number 1, pre-approval letter. Okay, I can tell you because I get called on them like a gazillion times a day. The pre-approval is the number 1 indicator that you're about to have something go ridiculously wrong. And asking if the buyer is strong is the worst question you can ask. Because what is every lender who's going to do who may have a tendency of lying? Yeah, they're great. Yeah, we're good. That's not an answer. Right? You also need to show the lender that you know enough to call them out on their BS. So you can see in between the lines if there's going to be a problem, buyer side or seller side, okay? So one question you want to ask, do you have the automated approval? Right? All of these questions are very easy for the lender to answer, but it shows that you know what you're talking about, which is going to put them on their toes, okay? Is it contingent? Look, just because the letter doesn't say that, doesn't mean it's not contingent, right? It's not. I've seen it. I've seen agents put on offers and then the agent calls me and asks, hey, Can you talk to them or find out what's going on? And then you find out that that was not the story. They just didn't put it on there. Okay? Is it FHA or conventional? Look, it's on the letter. The truth of the matter is, ask the question because you could call them out on it. Let's say you have 5 offers, right? One of them was a very strong conventional offer. You're like, we're going to go with this offer. You call the lender. No, this deal is FHA. So all you're doing is eliminating it, right? And it really can be an email, it can be a phone call, and you just go through the questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I feel comfortable. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't feel comfortable. Does the lender suck? Find out early. Are they responding? Are they responding to your client, right? Or are they responding to, so let's say it's your listing. Are they responding to the buyer's agent when you ask them for updates, right? Like, hey, I haven't heard anything. Where are we at with the appraisal? I don't know, they're not calling me back, right? Assume all lenders are idiots except you know this guy speaking, right? And what I mean by that is, look, if it's a good lender, it's a good lender, right? That's a small percentage, thankfully. But you have to assume that they don't, right? Your goal is to eliminate problems, especially when you have multiple offers. And the thing that bothers me, which is not my place to give any more information than I'm asked, is, hey, it's a multiple offer situation. Is your client strong? Yeah, my client's strong. Okay, cool. We just want to call and follow up. Thank you. That didn't, like, hey, the closing date's this date. Can you make that closing date? Right? Have you looked at their income? Do you have the automated approval? Right? Grill them so that way they know that you know what you're doing and you're also looking out for your client's best interest. You want to take this one?
I will. So inspection. You're going to want, as soon as you have an executed contract, this is probably going to be one of the first things that you want to get done. You don't want to rely on your clients to get that ordered because they're either going to forget or they're going to waste time trying to decide what inspection company they want to go with. And the longer you wait on that, the less time you have in the option period and the least amount of time you have to negotiate for your client's best interest. So you want to get that ordered first thing, and then you also want to make sure that you get that scheduled as soon as possible as well, because you don't want that to hold up the appraisal and also delay closing because things get pushed back.
And the client doesn't understand the severity of handling that situation. Like, I know for some it's like, hey, here's 3, they're all really good, make a choice.
No.
I would not do that, right? Because you have to keep it streamlined. If you're trying to close in 3 weeks and you let your client choose the inspector and then they shopped around and they're like, hey, we're going to get it next Tuesday, you've lost 5 days.
We can't order these.
No, but you can tell them to call the individual, right? Like, this would be my suggestion as an inspector. You can't make it, well, you give a list of 3 though.
Because we don't want to be, if we give them one and they have a bad experience.
And it falls back on us.
Yeah. So we always have to give them multiple people.
But there's no way that you leave it on them to call, schedule, and you don't follow up at all. You just let it play out.
We go, you've got to make it within the next few days or something.
Okay,
Yeah.
so a better way of maybe phrasing it is making sure your client does it immediately. I've seen too many examples where it takes an entire week, then they get it resolved, which is really my point. So it's more is to steer the client in the right direction to get it ordered, would be a better way of phrasing it. So thank you. And then can delay the appraisal because a lot of times they don't want to order the appraisal till they see the inspection report. So if you're tight on time, you want to take that into account. You also want to make, sorry, real quick. You also want to make sure that you're having the lender order it immediately after, not relying on the client to give the, and I've run into that situation where, especially if you don't know the lender, then that client may not know that they have to then tell them what the next step is. And then there's some type of delay. So you want to make sure that either you're telling the lender, if you know the lender, you're having the client tell them, email, CC, you want it, whatever it is, to make sure that once it's done, it's ordered right away.
Is there like some unwritten rule that they don't order the appraisal until after the option period?
No, there's no written rule about doing it after the option period. I personally will order it once I give the green light on the inspection, because then they get billed for the appraisal, and then when we order it, like our guy is trying to go out, guy or gal is trying to go out there the next day. I don't wait for option period because if you do the inspection, hey, it's clean, right? Even if you're negotiating, this is another great point. The client knows they're gonna buy the house no matter what. You're tight on time, right? Even if they don't give repairs, even if they don't give concession, we're still gonna buy the house, then we order the appraisal, you know, in order to stay on track. So that's more of a relationship with the realtor, the client, and your lender, and saying, hey, this one, we're good, go through, or hey, hold off, trying to negotiate, they're a little difficult. But I don't ever pay attention to the option period because it doesn't bother me, it's the big picture of what's going on. Holly, you had
I had the same question because other lenders I've worked with, they wait until after the option and if there's an amendment,
Yes.
in which, you know, is slow on their end.
I don't, because for me it's service and we're all on the same page. So if you call and say, hey, we're working on a couple things, it's definitely going through, and the client's like, hey, I want the house, I'm not waiting on anything. So that right there is an example of where there's delays to your process and stress, and which is why we did this is, I mean, in that example, that lender can always assume doing it that way and then delay it, versus you know, having to tell them, hey, order it, like let's get going. Tip number 3, survey.
Survey, same thing. This is another thing that you want to get ordered as soon as possible. If you're doing a new survey, if it's an existing survey and you're the listing agent, this is something that you want to make sure to get at your listing appointment. That way you can get the T47 taken care of as well, and then get them to get that notarized. That way that's not delaying anything either. This is another thing that can also delay closing, where if it's a buyer ordering a new survey, they wait till the very last minute, or you know, maybe an agent forgets to order it, and then closing's delayed just because of a survey that needs to be done. So that's another thing that you, that's very important that you want to remember to get taken care of sooner than later.
So this is another one that I've seen cause issues, right? Is, okay, you're handling the buyer, right? Well, the deal's going through, the title company should order the survey, they should be on top of it, and then you find out they're not, right? And then it's, well, we were waiting on you to order it, but then you may have not known if the loan was further enough along to order it. So for me, once it's clear to close or even approved and we know we're good, we're gonna order it. That's a week, week and a half out, 2 weeks out, because there's no reason to wait. Because literally it'll come up at the last moment many times because no one does anything and then it gets caught, right? So in your system, you wanna put something in place where when that loan is approved, hey, let's order the survey. Once it's clear to close, hey, did someone order the survey? Because you can't assume the lender orders it if they're not on top of their stuff, and the title company may not be on top of their stuff.
Well, and on top of that, just to add to, the survey is going to need to be approved. So I've had ones where, you know, the listing agent waits to get that survey turned in, they finally get it submitted, and then they find out close to closing that it's not approved. So then we are going to have to go out and get a new survey ordered, and so that adds another week too once they can get that scheduled. So it's best to be proactive and get things kind of checked off your list ahead of time, because then if something does go wrong, you have that extra time to kind of cover your bases and make sure that you can get that taken care of to make that original closing date.
And that's a good point. So where in your process are you addressing the survey? If it's yeah, I mean, I guess where in your process in general are you addressing the survey? So
I work off of a checklist that goes off of all the key dates on the contract. So say we have it checked off to where the existing survey is due in 10 days. So I'm gonna go into my checklist and add that date as a key date. And then I'm going to follow up first thing with the listing agent, even as soon as I have the executed contract. Hey, can you go ahead and send me that existing survey in T47, please? If they send it to me right away, awesome. If not, I'm gonna follow up again 3 days before. Again, hey, we're gonna need that survey in T47. We need to go ahead and get that submitted to the title company. Can you please send that over to us? If it's a new survey, same thing. I'm gonna go off of the 10 days or whatever is listed on the contract, but with getting a new survey ordered, I'm probably gonna do it a week out instead of 3 days to make sure that we get it submitted on time.
So if it's a new survey and the title company usually handles that, and you follow up with the title company.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we let you know the title company is handling it.
Correct. And we will always ask too. I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of our deals, we're ordering the survey based on when the loan is approved and then asking, hey, do we have an existing survey? Yes or no? Because the title company doesn't want to order anything until they know for sure it's going to go through. A lot of times they don't know it's going through until they miraculously get closing documents, which is the worst. And so everything we're talking about today is all stories you guys have experienced. It's putting something in your business so that way it just never happens and it's always on top of it. But we're ordering on the vast majority where we're like, hey, there's no survey, the loan's approved or clear to close or whatnot. It's like, hey, order it now so we're not dealing with it. And then I've had some agents who order it themselves and they want to handle it, but we're not going to allow our deal to go that far along and then be like, no one ordered an appraisal.
Did you have a question?
How old is the existing survey can be used?
Tina, that's a question for you.
Each
I mean,
situation is really different. It
yeah.
depends on what changes have been made to the property. We've seen some from 20 years back that they approved. Each lender throws
Right.
different curveballs. It's a really hard one just to give a set answer. That's why we say if you have it, even the minute you send the contract over, send it to us. We can send it out because, you know, clients don't want you ordering anything until they know that contract's going through, because what happens is if we be proactive and we order it and then the deal busts out, nobody wants to pay for it.
Right.
So the quicker you can get it to us, we can put it in front of them. And a lot of times, if we can get it approved early, then you're good. Your client's happy, everybody's happy. It's one less thing for them to, in their minds, offset as an expense.
Well, especially if your seller thought that they weren't paying for one and then they get hit with the $450 charge and they're super, super pissed because $450, but nobody looked at it. The lender didn't review it. The title company didn't review it because it wasn't sent in. Appraisal time. All right. See notes on lenders being idiots except for me. I say that because you and I all think that it's a logical step in the process. You have this, you have this, you have this, order the appraisal. But we just went over a great example, which I didn't even know existed. They're miraculously waiting on an option period, right? Well, what happens if you extended option? Even though you know it's going to go through, now you have 2 weeks to close. The appraisal takes a week and a half, depending on who it is. The value comes in lower, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just a setup. So somewhere in that, you need to pass it on to the borrower and say, hey, order your appraisal. Email your lender and say, order it. You know, the way I operate is once we lock the rate, they sign all the disclosures, I'm ready to order the appraisal like immediately. So then I ask, hey, when's the inspection? Oh, it's on Tuesday. Hey, when you're done with the inspection on Tuesday, email me and tell me how it goes, right? Hey, it went great. Okay, we're ordering the appraisal. Hey, there's some issues. Okay, we're gonna hold off. Keep me posted once there's an amendment, then we'll get going, right? So I'm already on top of it and putting it not so much back on the client, but on the client to keep me abreast of the inspection, right? Because I want to order it immediately because the clocks, right? If you only have 2 weeks, 3 weeks to close, which I do all the time, I don't want to wait a week or assume someone's going to tell me anything. Confirm the lender has ordered the appraisal ASAP after the okay on the inspection. That's what we went over. Find out when it's due so you can follow up, right? I'll give myself as an example, which is not the point of the class, but so every Monday I automatically do updates along with the appraisal, clear to close, approval. I mean, there's like 10 updates I give throughout, but I know when it's due. So I know when I'm updating you, hey Rui, it's gonna be back on Thursday. I'll send it to you as soon as I get it. So you know Thursday you're expecting the appraisal, then the client gets it. This also helps you because if there's some disconnect between the client and the mortgage company, or the mortgage company doesn't update the client, but maybe it has talked to you, now you're able to update your client, which is something we're gonna go over, right? If it's your seller, follow up on appraisal a week after contract is executed. Miraculously, nobody is gonna update you on an appraisal when you're handling the listing. So you have to bug somebody, the lender, the buyer's agent, hey, what's up with the appraisal? Because you know what they're gonna do. Like, they'll not bring it up, or they'll bring it up a little bit further into it. You'd not want to wait that long, right? Right, right. And really, once the contract's executed, within a week, there should be some type of timeline there on the appraisal, right?
I never get that.
Well, and I I update the listing agent on the appraisal and the timeline because it alleviates stress for you. So if Rui and I are handling a file and I'm handling the buyer, Rui's handling the buyer, and Sherry's handling the listing, right? Well, what's Sherry gonna do? Hey, Rui, I haven't heard anything. What's going on? Oh, you know what? I haven't heard from the lender. Hang on, let me find out and call you back. That's like 45 minutes worth of work to then update them, So I automatically will send an email to Sherry, CC Rui, and say, appraisal is back at met value, right? Never give any more information because it's not their business, but you tell them everything's okay. That's one less time they have to call you, which will take. The less you have to hear from the other agent, probably the better.
Yeah.
Because this is always a problem. Hey, Holly, hey, how's everything going? Hey, so my client went, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Right? Extend the closing date, wants a lease back of 2 days to clean. They didn't pack up everything. Like, it's always a pain in the butt. HOA.
I'll take it.
You take it, I'm gonna interrupt you afterwards.
Okay. This is another major item that you need to take care of as soon as possible. You never want to assume that it's being taken care of by anyone else, just like all the other items. This is another thing that can also delay closing, and it also can, if you're a listing agent, can also make your seller have to pay more fees or costs if they have to go ahead and order that on a rush, which stresses everyone else out more. And also, so always, this is what I do, follow up 2 days before the HOA docs are due. So what I will do is I'll reach out to the title company or to the management company, whatever it is, and say, can I please get a status update on the HOA docs? They're due to the buyer in 2 days. That way you can, same thing, be proactive and see if you're gonna have to possibly order them on a rush and get them in 1 day, because you don't want to risk not having them by that due date and then have the buyer possibly terminate.
This is maybe like the biggest epidemic we're having in our industry right now is title companies that don't order HOAs. HOA certs, like, is ridiculous. And so what happens is, not this title company, obviously, not Old Republic.
They order them, yes.
It's a huge epidemic because nobody wants to be proactive. Nobody. Everybody wants to be reactive, which is, oh, everything's going along. Yeah, we got to order the HOA. The HOA takes 7 to 10 business days. I don't have 7 to 10 business days. How much is the rush fee? $200. My client's not paying $200. Your client pays $200. Why is my client paying $200? Then it becomes very ugly at the end. So we're very proactive, even on my side of it. We're very proactive, even though it's technically not my job. We're very proactive on the HOA because we've had closings get missed. We've had very uncomfortable situations where one of the agents ended up having to pay for the rush because your client's mad, her client's mad, and then you're like, for $200, like, let's just put it to sleep. Like, I don't want this to get worse, right? And look, a lot of these things you shouldn't have to do, but if you put it into a plan, it's just clockwork. Hey, if I'm, a week into the contract, where are we at with ordering the HOA? Because title companies, for whatever reason, don't want to order it until they know again that everything's going to go smooth. You have to believe everything is going to go smooth. You have to, because then that happens. I mean, we've missed closing dates. I mean, we miss closing dates because of HOAs, because there's nothing you can do. And the underwriter needs that HOA to confirm the HOA amount, and sometimes if it's a condo, a lot of other information. So it's not just a, hey, get it and then we can close type of scenario. You may get it on the date you close. You're not closing on that date. Now sometimes you can do a verbal, right? So we'll try to get a verbal of the information. How much is it a year, blah, blah, blah. But put something in place, right? You also have to remember too, it reduces the amount of stress for your client, the buyer, the seller, because if everybody thinks they're closing Friday, everything looks like it's closing Friday, and it's going to come up at the last minute. It's going to delay it to Tuesday. Movers, this, that. It's a train wreck. And what we do, every bad experience, they relate back to us, right? Even though it's not our fault. It's not our fault, right? But they relate it back to us. Financing approval, mark the date on your calendar. This was Alyssa's suggestion, which is a good one. Hey, 21 days out, right? Now you do it how many days do you follow up in advance of the financing approval?
So if I'm working with the buyer's agent, if it's our buyer, I'll follow up like 2 or 3 days just to make sure that we're gonna make that date. If I'm working with the listing agent, I usually won't follow up until like day before, day of, because it's in our client's best interest if they, if they are not gonna make that. I mean, it's better for our seller. So yeah, I would say 2 or 3 days for buy side, for seller about a day or day of, just to kind of get an answer. And you can kind of tell how quickly you're gonna get a response from the lender if it's not Dave. So if I'm working with a lender who I know is pretty unresponsive, then I may adjust that to a little further out, so I can make sure if I have to follow up with them multiple times before that date, then I'll do so.
And that's an example of no news is bad news. It's not no news is good news, it's bad, right? Now, if everything is going well and you're getting your updates, right? So if I'm handling it, you're getting your updates. So when the financing approval comes, you already know where you're at. The appraisal's back, it's already approved. We have everything we need, whatever it is, right? But for all the ones that you don't know, you don't trust or whatever, and it's also important for your buyers, not even just listing. Listing, you want to make sure because, hey, is it on track? For your buyer, it's important too, because they're at exposure, to their earnest money and something going wrong. And then questions to ask is it approved? Is it clear to close? Are we on track for closing? Right? Now this last one, they're always going to tell you yes, which is a lie, which we'll get to in a second. Is it approved? If it's your client, I'm asking. Cool, what do we need? Oh, you know what, I'm waiting on one letter to get signed. Fantastic. Hey, they still haven't got me their bank statements. Oh my God. Right? Like, approved is not really worth anything, right? Depending on what's still needed, right? Hey, it's approved, but the underwriter has a lot of questions on their income. So I don't understand what you're saying, right? Like, hey, we have a problem or we don't have a problem? The week before closing, I'm going to do this one. Are we clear to close? When we're a week out from closing, right? Really, if we're closing on Friday, Monday, I want to have this discussion with the lender, right? Are we clear to close? Period. It's a yes or no question. Are we or are we not? Because I've had situations, not mine, and I'll tell you a story here on another one, where the update is, yeah, we look good, we're on track. That's not what I'm asking. I said, are we clear to close, right? Because clear to close means we are on track. Is the 3-day CD going out 4 days before the closing date? Okay, I'm going to tell you an amazing, amazing story. So we were supposed to close on Thursday. My buyer is closing Thursday. The sale of their home is also closing on Thursday, right? Domino effect, you already know where this is going. And the realtor, the buyer, sorry. So my realtor that's working with my buyer, the seller's realtor, and then the buyer on the other one are all like, hey, I don't know what's going on with the lender and this and that. The lender's update on Monday, we're closing on Thursday, was, yeah, we look good. Yeah, we look good. Okay, so are we clear to close? Yeah, I was just waiting on this one thing. Man, we're looking good. So they would forward me these updates from the lender. Hey, look, we're good. We're good for Thursday. I go, that's not an answer, right? So we go into Tuesday, and I say, man, we need to find out if that CD went out on Monday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you can close on Thursday. Saturdays count, Sundays don't, okay? So I'm like, something's wrong. No one's getting a direct answer, right? And the guy's been doing it for 15 years, which is usually a lie also. So finally, not my client, right? Not my client. Our loan has been clear to close 2 weeks in advance. We're already at title, ready to go, right? Not my client, but I said, hey, this is getting really bad. Give me the lender's number. I'm going to call him myself, right? Because every update was, hey, we're cool. Yeah, it's in compliance. We'll be fine, blah, blah. I said, hey, man, it's Tuesday. Has the CD gone out yesterday and was it signed? No, the CD didn't go out. So we're not closing on Thursday. Oh, we're not closing on Thursday. And it was ugly. I mean, I think we ended up closing like Monday. It got that bad, right? So buyer's pissed, seller's pissed. Buyer is selling their home, right? I mean, it was terrible, terrible. So it's not is it going okay? It's we're 4 days out from closing, right? And you, depending on your relationship, Like, Sherry, you could ask Rui, hey, has your client signed the 3-day CD? Right? That is a black and white answer for the other agent to know the answer to, because they should know already because of that closing, their own closing, right? And they may not. And if they give you any answer besides yes or no, that's not an answer. They'll say it's in compliance. Hey, we should be good. We're waiting on the underwriter. It's clear. Yes or no. Confirm again 4 days before closing. Sundays do not count. So I was saying, you count backwards. Did anybody have questions about that? This is another one when you have a domino effect or a lot of things are lined up that this gets screwed up by lenders on a regular basis. So that one's a really, really important one along with the HOA, I feel like.
And I always, like you said, the 4 days, I'll always reach out to the lender 4 days out and say, has the CD gone out? Because if they come back and tell you, no, it has not, we're still working on one condition or whatever they're going to tell you, that still gives you time to kind of move through everything. And if you do have to move things around, like he was saying on that other transaction, it gives you a little bit of time to do that rather than waiting until closing day, finding out you're not going to close, and then everybody's rushing and upset to try and get everything rescheduled.
I just thought of actually an even better one to also keep in mind on top of this topic, okay? It's called an early 3-day CD. So you will have some lenders either follow a system where the loan has to be clear to close to then send a 3-day CD, okay? Or that's how they want to operate, okay? Or they're gonna blame the title company. I just dealt with this one. Or waiting on the title company, or waiting on the title company. They do not have to wait on the title company. They can send what we have, and we do this, to the best of what information you have, which you would have had title company fees in advance if you didn't wait until the last minute. And then they do it. And then we send out the 3-day CD. So I have deals where maybe we're waiting on something. A gift letter, their next paycheck, a deposit to post, whatever. And I know it's going to hit in fact, we just had this happen. I knew it was going to hit Tuesday. We're closing Wednesday. I'm not waiting on that. I'm getting that 3-day CD out. And then when I get it, my underwriter's going to clear it, and then we're still fine. Okay? So some of them will say, we're not clear to close yet. And then you're going to say, can you not send an early 3-day CD? Bottom line. Because some of them you're going to have to lead them to water in their own business, which is embarrassing, but you guys have all done it, right? Where you have to, if it wasn't for you, it doesn't close at all. It doesn't matter what title, lender, right? So an early 3-day CD. They should not have to wait on the title company. I've had one of them, another lender, that was their excuse. We're waiting on the title company. We're waiting on the title company. Never. That's unacceptable. For the 3-day CD, okay? Did you guys find that one really, really, really helpful?
Yes.
You want to take this one?
Amendments. These are exciting. So amendments are obviously extremely important as well. You're going to want to make sure that you get these submitted to all parties. And then I would also recommend a week out from closing, sending them out again to everyone to make sure that you're covering all your bases and no one can come back and say, hey, we never received that amendment with a seller contribution, and then it's not on that CD that went out. So I've dealt with that before where we got to closing day. Buyer looks over the CD, buyer's agent looks over the CD, and that seller contribution's not on there, and the buyer's upset, mad, then they're gonna have to go back, fix everything, and that delays closing as well. Also, another big reason with that same transaction, the seller contribution was actually too high, and so the buyer's agent never caught that. And so the buyer was actually receiving less money than what he was expecting. Another reason he was extremely upset. So I recommend to always send them out twice. People may think you're annoying and bombarding them with stuff, but it's better to just have your bases covered and ensure that everyone has it, title company, lender, so that nothing is missed and that it doesn't cause you any added problems.
Yeah, we've had ones where they come up like the day of closing.
Oh.
Which is unacceptable, but nobody sends it, right? And one thing that Alyssa didn't touch on, which is also important, is I have my own underwriter. So if I have to get it cleared, it'll get cleared. A lot of lenders, you're going to have to go back to underwriting. Then they have to update the file. Then they do it. If that's coming up the day of, it's a pain. So now all of you sitting here are probably like, yeah, I send the amendment all the time, right? there's 2 agents on the transaction. So your thought process has to really be, cool, we have it. I'm representing the buyer. I shouldn't have to. The listing agent should know it's her title company, his title company, whatever. Send it every time, right? I mean, immediately once it's executed, forward it, get it off your desk, right? And you're just reducing it, just reducing one more thing that can go wrong.
And never assume that the other person is sending it to everyone. Just go ahead and send it yourself to everybody.
You want to take this one?
Closing. So I recommend to get your appointment scheduled anywhere from 7 to 9 days out. The reason I recommend this is because you're also planning your day, and you may have showings, you have walkthroughs, so you're able to, hopefully title has, their day fully open, and you're able to pick what time works best for you and your client. If you're waiting until, a few days before time slots fill up, and then you're trying to juggle. Another reason I recommend to get it scheduled a week out is because if you're going to close at 10 in the morning, it gives you the ability to find out when's going to be best for you and your client to do the walkthrough. So a week is what I generally recommend. If for any reason it does get delayed, at least you have that time slot booked, and then you can move from there.
I also really, really like that because it puts pressure on the title company. Because now they know. A lot of them will worry about addressing the closing when they get the closing documents. Hey, we have the closing documents. If you put it on the calendar, it gives them something to stay on top of, right? And number 3 is another thing that you've heard me say like 100 times in this presentation, is that's reducing your stress. If you have to reschedule it and you have a listing presentation at 4, but hey, I had a closing, now I have to get a bump, blah, 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 cause a lot of stress, right? So you want to alleviate your client's stress, right? Mornings are great, mornings are gone, now you're closing later in the afternoon.
Just to touch on that, Dave, the way I can only speak on behalf of us.
Yeah.
Immediately when we get the files, immediately we put on the calendar based on the contract when that closing is supposed to take place. Because of course it is a trickle effect. If this one's delayed, we could end up with 5 extra closings, which is great, we'll take them on a date. But up front we'll ask, is there anything we need to know about your client? If they're a nurse, are they going to be coming straight from work? They have to close in the morning, they want to close at 4 o'clock. Then we start let's not do that, because we're not going to fund, your client's not going to get the keys, and somebody's not going to be happy. So the more variables we know up front, it's a lot easier. But we usually have it on the calendar, and if we get the amendment that says it's an extension, then we go up the days and we go by that. So that when they call and they say, hey, we want to close early and we're trying to check, we know that we have that flexibility. So it really helps. The more you communicate early, it's a lot easier.
And that's awesome. Thank you, Dana. And that's it goes back to also a mail out. That happens all the time. Everybody's assuming, hey, we're good for Friday, and then you find out it's a mail out to California. Well, that's going to cost you a day.
I get that a lot.
Right.
Please tell us up front if they're not in the state.
That's a slide I should have put up there, and then Dana could have gone, because that causes problems. Everybody's on track. Oh yeah, hey, it's a mail out.
Especially if you live in Alaska. Not just visit them regularly.
Well, I have one more thing for that one too.
Yeah.
So we just got done with summer, and so what I dealt with a lot the last few months is last minute people come and say, oh, I'm going to be on vacation.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that date was on the contract. You're like, okay, so then everybody's scrambling to see if we can do POA, or which has to be written up and approved by title also. So
And the lender.
Yeah.
And the lender.
True. And so that's another reason why it's so important to be ahead of everything, because if someone's going to say, oh, we're going to be on vacation, you have time to kind of either reschedule the closing if they're able to do that, if you're using Dave and he's going to close you early, or you have time to get the POA taken care of, whatever needs to be done. But you don't want to wait till the last minute and then be scrambling.
Well, and I think that example right there is where so many of us in the industry just go, it happens. It happens all the time. Happens all the time. It's just part of it. And it's just like, there's stuff you're going to be doing with that time that's now been wasted, you know?
I don't think it's on one of your slides, but you could always add it. Home warranties, how do you all handle that? Because we're seeing it from all angles. Do you all recommend for your clients? Do you tell your clients let title choose for you? No.
No.
Okay.
We
You give them 3. We're getting a lot of Please don't let us choose a few. We can only give them all the brochures that we have. So I'm really curious, like what the brokerages are training you guys on what's the best way to handle it. I only know from when I was an agent.
You mean you don't refer him all the time?
No, I give 3.
He's at top.
I'll say name, I'll say my
Yeah, so a lot of times the clients are like, oh, you choose.
There you go.
And so I'm always curious, what is the trend?
Are you asking us?
Well, yeah. because you
So
guys will
majority
see
of
as well.
agents that I work with will recommend 2 or 3 to their clients, and then the clients chooses. They
Yeah.
choose which one they want to go with. I have been noticing a lot though that more and more title companies will follow up with me and say, or even with the buyer and copy me on the email and say, it's time to get your home warranty ordered, let us know who you want. And I'll just come back and say, I'll get it taken care of and I'll get the invoice sent to you. But I have noticed that a lot more title companies are doing that now, so.
Yeah, because a lot of agents we're seeing, they're just.
They're forgetting about it or just.
Well, that happens a ton where we'll go to closing and no one's addressed the topic at all.
Well, and that's important if it's your buyer because I mean that's
Yeah.
they're getting that taken care of for them. So you definitely want to get that ordered. But I have noticed that a lot of title companies are starting.
Doesn't that have to be on the CD?
No. No, so that wouldn't be an issue. It's more or less the awkwardness there of which one, I don't know, and this and that,
If it comes during the inspection period, it was part of a negotiation or
Right.
sidebar conversation,
Oh, yeah.
and then they're like, hey, remember you said I could? And then you're sitting at the closing table, and everybody's trying to figure out who said what.
Yeah.
Amendments.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, this one's mine, so I'm going to take it. Updates. One thing that's going to streamline your own business is streamlining your updates. Okay? If you update every single client the same every single time, and Rui and I talked about this not too long ago, it reduces a ton of stress for you. It reduces a ton of stress for the client. So if you don't update your client the same on every file every single time, put something into place. So something I think that Rui and I talked about, I think, is like I update every Monday. That's my update day, right? So you could make your update Monday or Tuesday. That gives you Monday to get the updates. And then you're updating your client every Tuesday, every single transaction, every single time. Because what happens is this, you know it's going well. They are losing their mind during the process. So they didn't hear from you for a week. Something must be going wrong, right? Or is going well and it's actually not going well, right? Whatever it is. So one, it shows that you're on top of it. It also reduces the amount of phone calls you're gonna get asking for updates. Hey, where are we at, right? And it shows that you're just completely on top of it. Hey, I talked to the buyer's lender on the home we're selling of yours. They said the appraisal will be back Thursday. That's great news. I'll update you as soon as I hear, right? It's just customer service. So streamline your updates. If you don't have a system in place right now where you update them the same time, every transaction, come up with something. It's just going to reduce the amount of stress. It's going to up your customer service. Stick to a schedule. If it's Tuesday, you're doing those updates. Look, I send out some updates where I'm like, Monday I'll send up the update saying, hey, everything's going great. And then the appraisal comes in an hour later and I'm sending another one. Hey, appraisal's back, here you go, right? Always stick to the update because it's going to allow you to not forget to give those updates, right? Sometimes it's, nothing has really changed. I talked to him on Friday. Send the update, right? Just automatically train yourself to do it. Update the client ASAP after you get updates. It's just easier. It gets it off your list. If the lender, even if it's a doubling up of the update, so the lender updates you that the loan is approved, I'd call or email the client and be like, hey, I saw your loan's approved. We're doing great. We're right on track, right? And just get it off your desk. Hey, I updated. There you go. Shows you are on top of it and reduces the chance for them to freak out. I actually learned this lesson years ago where I still updated, but the deal was going fine. And then afterwards, they said that they expected more updates. And I was like, I did, and we closed on time or early. I mean, it was fantastic. But you're going to have, we've all had those clients, right? So instead of allowing them to perceive that, I'm gonna shove so much customer service, right? That it's just like, wow, this was an amazing experience, right? It's the same thing, but you're simplifying it to where it's like, hey, every Tuesday, punch them out, move on. Okay, bonus tip. I've said this 100 times, mainly to be funny, but it's true. You have to assume everyone is an idiot. You're the only intelligent person in transaction. For those of you who have done it for long periods of time, right, or X amount of years, how many times have you dealt with an agent that you knew you just had to hold their hand? Right? So that's something to try to keep in mind. Same thing with title companies. I've had scenarios where the service is unbelievable, right? That's why I love them here. Then you have a ton of examples where the service is awful. Awful. Builders, lenders, and builders title company. Perfect example. That title company could care less if you're closing at 4 o'clock because you're going to sit there until 5:30. Stewart on the Beltway, I'm talking about you. They actually locked up the popcorn and the drinks and left when we had to close on a deal before Harvey hit. I'm going to tell you that story later. Try to stick with one lender and one title company. Obviously, there's a 3 list. I get that. I know someone was going to correct me when I said that. As you work with a great lender, a great title company, try to, and I'm not saying send it to them for the benefit of them. Dana, close your ears. I'm not saying that for the benefit of them. I'm saying for the benefit of you, because they have systems, right?
And you learn each other's systems.
And you learn each other's systems. So if all your listings go to one, and for those of you who have done it for a while, you found your one, it's the greatest closer in the world, you send them everything, cool. Lenders, for those of you who are kind of on the fence and you're really starting to expand your business, or you're starting, test a couple. Unfortunately, you're going to learn it the hard way. Test a couple, get it down, because that person, when you find the right one that operates the same way, you're gold. It reduces stress. It's amazing how certain title companies, I've never had an HOA problem, and then there's certain ones that you have an HOA problem every time. All right, so subliminal under message, depending on where you're growing with your business. If you are an individual and or you're growing your team in really any level, think about hiring a transaction coordinator, okay? It's per transaction, okay? So you're not hiring a true individual, and it's amazing what one person can do to free you up to do more marketing, more customer service, okay? It's unbelievable, okay? And I truly believe, if you're on the fence, if your team already doesn't have one, if you're an individual, that is the first, cheapest, easiest step to blowing up your business. Is just committing to, I have a transaction coordinator, and I will pay X amount because I know that she's, it's dollars and cents. How much do you guys charge per file?
$400.
$400. For $400, it's dollars and cents. How many hours of work is it for you to do that same amount of work? Let's say 20, right? And how much does that cost? And how much is your time worth, right? If you get one more deal, right? Like, do the math in your own head. You just need one more deal to pay for X amount to break even. It's the right thing to do. And here's what's great. It allows you to stay an individual, right? It allows you to not have to hire somebody full time, pay taxes, interview. I'm dealing with that on multiple levels. Interviewing is very difficult. You're not an HR person, right? And so that's truly, if that's where you're kind of on the fence, you've done 2 or 3, man, I know I can do more, but oh my God, the 3 is stressing me out. That's a good one. If you're on a team and your team is growing, that may be a perfect scenario to bring someone in and allow that assistant or that buyer's agent to only be doing those things, not following up on stuff that could go wrong.
And if you're an agent who has an assistant, I know he mentioned that a little bit, a transaction coordinator is super helpful too, because your assistant, I'm sure, is handling a million things, and it frees the assistant up as well to focus on your marketing or your pre-listing items or anything that you need them to take care of specifically, whereas the assistant doesn't have to have the contract to close on their plate as well.
And follow-up. Let's use that as an example. You're slammed. You're showing homes. You're closing 5 deals a month. You're handling transaction, but you're not following up on possible leads, people you talk to. You're not on it. That's a whole nother class, which is how many touches, how many times you have to communicate to stay on top of a lead to get that deal. That right there would be, hey, I'm not doing that. There's money in that. You're not being able to follow up because you're slammed. You're losing money. So just from that, it'd be like, hey, when I get the contract, I mean, just tell me when it goes well. And then you update your realtors how often, well, I know you update at every interval, but so how many times do you think you update your realtors on every transaction? Yeah.
I would say probably daily. So they're going to be copied on every email that I send to whether I'm following up with the title, lender, or like our client. But yeah, so if I get a response from, say I emailed Dave and he's like, hey, appraisal's been delayed. It's not, we haven't received it yet. It'll be back in 2 days. I'll go ahead and message my agent and say, hey, just got this update, this is what's happening. And then I'll also update client. Every agent's different, so some agents may want me to be more hands-on and have direct contact with their clients, which I will. Other ones want to relay the message, so depending, I'll relay it to the agent, they'll relay it to the clients, or I'll contact the clients and let them know what's going on as well. So I'm in constant contact with the agents that I work with, I would say definitely daily.
Well, and that's, for some, it's very difficult to make that jump because your thought process is no one does as good of a job as I do, right? Which could be true, right? I always have to be the one that does it. I always have to be the one that does it. That mindset, and I went through it myself in my own business, that mindset will keep you only doing X amount of business because you're so overwhelmed, right? And here's the thing. The great thing about it is you test them at what they do. If they're awful, you have one example of where, hey, it didn't work, and you find somebody else, right? And it's not like you have to wake up tomorrow and say, hey, I'm now only going to use one. Learn how they work. Learn how their process works, right? If you have 5 deals, I'm not sending 5 tomorrow to them, no disrespect, but get comfortable, especially if you're a person who has a hard time letting go. That's a good example. Hey, this one went well, this one went well. Okay, like so for some of us, we have to see it. And then believe it.
Majority too, because I can tell you everything that I do, but it's hard to like realize it until you actually see everything move along and see everything that's happening throughout the transaction.
That's me. Did you guys have any questions?
I do for Alyssa.
Yes.
Because we haven't talked before. So in your process, we know that we are in charge of getting all of the docs to you first.
Yes.
And then you follow up on everything through that. Now, at the end, do you upload stuff like to our brokers?
Yes.
All the docs? Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh, yay.
So you would just give me your like whatever. What do you use?
Back agent.
Okay, so back agent, you just give me your login, and then I'll go in and upload all of the documents and submit it for you. If you want me to do your funding request, I can do that too. It's up to you, but yeah.
The class, one thing we wanted to be careful, we didn't want the class to be an hour of me pitching Alyssa. So now as you've thought through questions, I mean, I'd ask. I know for a fact if the client, because we've talked about this, if the client, let's say the client's difficult getting you stuff, right? Yeah. You have no problem contacting the client.
Like survey. So if you tell me that there's an existing survey but you haven't gotten it yet, I'll email the client, I'll call them, make sure they give it to me. I'll send them the T47 to have that completed. Once they get it back to me, I'll go ahead and submit it to everybody. So, I mean, yeah, I'll follow up with it for things like that, so.
And
HOA docs. I've worked with builders before, yeah, those are kind of difficult, but.
They're
Yeah.
going to get stuff.
And I'm going to give you a side story on why I'm a very big fan of hers from a third-party standpoint is I work with many agents, and many of them have a transaction coordinator. Hey man, my transaction coordinator is going to contact you. I've had examples where they did not contact me until we were 3 weeks into the deal, and then said, hey, did the appraisal come back? Man, shoot, I sent that to Holly like 2 weeks ago, and now you're following up. Like, it's not my place to say anything, but I would say, man, you just got robbed. Like that person, you know, I mean, it has to be where, I mean, she has dates and systems. So let's be honest, maybe you're not good at systems and schedules. Cool, do your thing, girl.
And I'll
right, and do what you're good at.
Yeah, and I'll send you a 5-day out option reminder that's ending. I'll send you a 1-day out option reminder. Survey, I'll let you know, hey, it's due in 3 days. We need to get this taken care of if it hasn't been done. HOA docs, I'll get those ordered if they need to be ordered. So keeping you on track with those important key dates.
And that's a good thing for those of you who are transaction coordinators. Hey, you could have maybe picked up some tips for something you may want to do differently or streamline. It's good, brainstorming amongst your peers who do different transactions. Maybe they have certain ones that they do a certain way, and you can, get little ideas that can help you with your own teams.
Yeah, if you're the transaction coordinator or you're the assistant on it, it goes right back to systems. I'd steal 100% of what we went over today, and I go back in the office and be like, you're never gonna believe it. I was like, I've got some plans to make it way less stressful for you. You're gonna look like the greatest transaction coordinator, assistant, whatever it is, right? Because you're bringing so much value to that agent. All right? Thank you guys so much.